So I grew up in the 90s in a Caribbean household, and according to the culture, there were two solutions for everything: tea and prayer. If you were schizophrenic, it's quite simple. You have demons, you need to pray. If you were struggling with depression, you just needed some bush tea. And that was the extent of the mental health conversation. The real problem was never really addressed. It was swept under the rug. And I think that's one, because of the shame, and two, because we just didn't have the knowledge. We didn't understand how to have a proper mental health conversation. But that's why I'm here. Talkticians, welcome and welcome back. My name is Tatiana. I teach communication strategies to help you master conflict resolution. It is May, Mental Health Awareness Month. In addition to what I just told you, I am also a mental health first aid instructor. And a big part of my role is helping to reduce the stigma. So, in today's video, we're going to cover 6 common mental health myths because I feel that the more we understand, the better and the smoother our conversations are going to be. Myth number 1: mental illnesses are a sign of weakness. The truth of the matter is that could not be further from the truth. Having a mental illness is not a character flaw, and it's really unfair for us to just slap a label on it. Having a mental illness is a very complex mixture of a bunch of different factors. A person's biology, their lived experience, their environment, the way that they grew up. You have some conditions that run in the family, so that may make a person more genetically predisposed to having like maybe anxiety or depression. So I feel like it's really unfair to just label them as weak. We also have to take a look at the person's background. Like if you're in the social work world and education, you may hear something called ACEs, ACE, little s, and that basically means adverse childhood experiences. So those are stressful or traumatic events that happen to a child from the ages of birth to 17. And this is not an exhaustive list, but just some of those things could be exposure to community violence. It could be seeing abuse and neglect in the household, seeing it and experiencing it. Can be stressful or traumatic. Some kids are separated from their parents. For example, if a child has a parent that is in jail, poverty, experiencing homelessness, not knowing where your next meal is going to come from. All of these different things can impact a person's both physical and mental health. It doesn't mean that the person is weak, and it's really unfair for us to just slap such a mild label on it when it's such a complex mixture of factors. Myth number 2: people with mental illnesses are dangerous and or violent. That is also not true. Majority of people who have mental health conditions are not violent. In fact, they tend to be the victims of violent crimes. There was a study that was done at the Institute of Psychiatry at King's College in London. In this study, they found that people that had severe mental illnesses were actually 5 times more likely to be the victim in a violent crime. In that same study, they found that women were actually 10 times more likely to be victims of violent crime. The statistics for the United States is that people that have mental health illnesses only account for 4% of violent crime. So again, that number is pretty low. I share this because I don't want us walking around afraid of people that have mental illnesses. What I do want us to do is understand the facts, treat people with respect and with decency, and even go as far as to protect somebody that you know is struggling with a mental illness. Okay, so this myth that people that have mental illnesses are just dangerous and they are the bane of society is just it's just not true. Myth number 3: if somebody looks fine, if somebody looks happy, then they cannot possibly be struggling. And that could not be further from the truth, because all of us wear a mask. Okay, we have to. We don't want to be teased. We don't want to be shamed. We don't want to be looked at as incapable or weak. More often than not, mental health challenges have signs, but we may not necessarily see it. It could be that the sign is just that subtle and we happen to miss it. It could also be because we're not around that person 24/7, so we don't get to see the depths of what's going on. It could be that we're not trained. We don't have the patience to see it. But just because we can't see it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. You might have that coworker that is super positive. They're always smiling. Nothing gets them down. And that's great. You might think that their mental health is absolutely amazing. But what you don't see is when they go home and they are up until 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, dealing with insomnia. They can't sleep because they're just so stressed out and so anxious. And talking about this makes me think of Chesley. I hope I'm saying her name right. Chesley Christ. She was Miss USA. She was an attorney, absolutely beautiful, had a very successful career. She was a TV correspondent, had everything going for her. That beautiful young woman took her life. And I remember the conversation being like, but she's so beautiful and she had money and she was Miss USA. How could that happen? Well, because she's a human being. And just because you look fine or you look happy or you have money, it doesn't mean that you don't struggle. It doesn't mean that you're not going through the human experience and feeling things like betrayal, rejection, sadness, pressure. Okay. So I share that because I want us to have a more open mind and be more compassionate and not assume that because people look normal that they are okay. Myth number 4. If you're struggling with your mental health, you just need to pray more and you need to be more positive. Now, I am going to take a minute and I am going to take off my mental health first aid hat because I'm going to get a little spiritual real quick, okay? The brain is very powerful, and engaging in positive thinking, in prayer, in meditation can do wonders for your mental health. But I don't think that these tools should exist in opposition to therapy. God knew when He put us on earth that we were going to have earthly problems. So He gave us people like doctors and therapists, people who have dedicated their entire lives to studying the brain and learning techniques that help us to become mentally well. Therapists are trained in techniques that help us to challenge our negative thoughts, validate us in ways that our friends and our family just may not be able to do, and they equip us with tools that help us to live happy, healthy lives. So I say we need Jesus and therapy. Myth number 5 is that talking about mental health makes things worse. Silence and shame is what makes things worse, not the conversation. When we learn how to have a proper mental health conversation, that means being compassionate, that means actually listening and doing so non judgmentally. That's a whole different way to listen. Knowing what resources are available so that you can actually share it with that person in that conversation. That is a very healthy thing to happen. This is what we want to happen in order to move out of this mental health crisis. For the people that are contemplating opening up and sharing this conversation, I want to give this little tidbit of advice, okay? Everybody don't got the skill. Everybody don't have the gift, okay? To ensure that this conversation is going to go well and that's not going to cause you harm, you have to choose people that you can open up to and share those deepest, darkest moments with. We be wanting it to be family and friends so bad, but sometimes they're just not equipped, okay? So I highly encourage you to move past the silence, move past the shame, because that's a lot to have to sit with by yourself, and definitely reach out to a professional. If you're trying to figure out where the heck to get that start, I have a video called The 5 Mental Health Lifelines that gives you 5 free, low cost, different resources that you can get connected with so that you can get started on your mental health journey. Myth number 6 is that real men don't struggle with mental health. That is a very harmful stereotype that is stopping men from getting the help that they desperately need. The most recent stat that I have is from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and they found that men are 3 to 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women. At the root of it, it's because of the way that we socialize our boys, and it's the stigma that's still very much so associated with mental health. We teach our boys not to cry. And when they do, we tease them or we react with violence. I've seen kids like shaken and shamed and yelled at because they cried. Toughen up, be a man. It's like, well, he's 3. Then boys learn to limit their range of normal human emotion to just withdrawal or anger. When they do open up or they show anything outside of withdrawal or anger, we say to them, why are you so emotional? Or are you soft? And a whole bunch of other words that are quite shameful. Hey, battery died. Let's try this again. So, doing workshops and classes around mental health, I have conversations with men, and so many of them reveal that they don't feel comfortable. They feel like they have to hide their pain, they have to hide their emotions to keep up that fake image of being strong. Now, we as a society have put ourselves in a very, very dangerous position. Our sons, our fathers, our brothers, our husbands are literally dying because they don't have a safe place to be a human being. Lee Thompson Young, Don Cornelius, Twitch, Robin Williams, Anthony Bourdain, all of them were real men that struggled with their mental health. Men, I understand that you all communicate and process information differently than us. So maybe it coming from me won't necessarily work. But I encourage you to create your own spaces where you can talk and you can process and you can heal. One, because you deserve to be an entire whole human being, but it also benefits your family and your communities and your workplaces when you are mentally healthy. If you or anyone that you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, I highly suggest reaching out to 988. That is our suicide and crisis lifeline. You can call, you can text, you can chat, whatever you feel more comfortable with. But the important part is that the line is 24/7 and there are trained professionals on that line that can help you. So, as we continue to grow and to learn this mental health awareness month, I just want to give us a few tips to help us communicate with more compassion. Continue to educate yourself by watching this channel and listening to other mental health advocates. Avoid using phrases that invalidate people, that would make them shut down, like just get over it, be a man, you're being too soft, you're being too sensitive. Stay away from those things and ask open ended questions. This is not to get in people's business. If we don't have information, we can't help people. So, of course, the same way that you all learn from me, I learn from you. So, go ahead and sound off in the comments. What mental health beliefs did you grow up with, and is it serving you today? If you like this kind of content, be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the things for more content on mental health, conflict resolution, and communication. Talkticians, until next time.